and welcome. You are watching The Week in Review. I'm your host, Ade Darame, and here going through the stories with me, as has become the norm most weeks, Odom Birch. Mr. Birch, welcome to the program.
Cheers, Ade. Glad to be here as always.
Thank you. And for those of you who've been used to seeing our normal signing accompanist, Lamidi Sonko, I'm afraid he's not with us this week, but he'll be with us again next week, inshallah. So, our program is called The Week in Review, and we take 10 stories from the week just gone by, kick them around a bit, we discuss them a bit, and some stories deserve more time than others. Some they maybe just deserve a minute, some deserve 5, 6 or more. So if you see us going on a bit, it's meant to be like that, okay? So what's on the menu, I hear you ask? Well, His Excellency the President has just concluded his Meet the People tour, and there was a press conference at the end of it. We'll delve into that. The Gambia Revenue Authority has once again met the target government set for it. And also on financial and fiscal matters, the Finance Minister has just revealed the budget for next year to the National Assembly. Also, nationwide polio vaccination campaign is underway. It's just about to finish as this program goes out, in fact. Also, the International Moot Court competition, named after Sadauda Kairaba has just concluded. And also, everybody's been asking the Information Commission, when are they going to start work? What exactly is there? Well, we'll hear all about that. They held a press briefing to tell us what they're on about. And we delve finally into the world of football. The CAF Awards for the best in Africa have just been revealed, and guess who's not on it? You probably guessed. Anyway, let's get cracking, shall we? First story, the constitutionally mandated Meet the People's Tour has just ended, and at the end of this one, His Excellency the President held a press conference. Here's some of what he had to say.
I am really very happy and even amazed that I have gone far as Boliban, as Sare Demba Toro. Sare Demba Toro is enjoying 24 hours electricity, clean energy for that matter. These are things that, these were just dreams that we are thinking. We never thought that it will happen. But we assure you that all these projects, we will continue to follow up, we will continue to put pressure so that we complete the projects of this country. But the Gambian people are my partners. They are my very important partners. I cannot do it alone. I need the support of the Gambian people. Whether you are opposition, whether you are government, whether you are NPP, we need everybody to support. I am seeing light at the end of the tunnel.
Samboj, His Excellency is seeing a light at the end of the tunnel. He talks about being happy, being amazed, and he talks about the project. The project mean, of course, the transformation of this country, mainly to do with infrastructure. And of course, as I said there, it's mandated, this Meet the People. And but what's the sense you get of it generally, Meet the People tour, and this one specifically?
Absolutely. There, when he said he could see the light at the end of the tunnel, of course, the thought that came to my head was the other one, or the light could be an oncoming train.
Absolutely.
Be careful there.
That's right.
So this is it. So the question I asked myself was, how would success look like?
How do you measure it?
How do you measure it in this sort of thing? What is success in many ways? And he was right, because from our reports, Usman Jatta was with the entourage. So it appears as if there was a good welcome, a healthy turnout, if you can put it that way, of people to welcome him and the like. And then the discussions they had, the banter back, and I call it that, all of these stops, the banter back he had. And the sort of, the response from people with Alcalos and whoever, the response has been sort of very positive on the whole, wasn't it? And in some areas, as you said, now they can get 100% electricity. So one aspect of his rule so far has been that he's been taking it fair amount to the hinterland,
Well,
to rural areas, be it in roads and electricity and the like.
Yes.
So, yes, there's a certain way you can look at it and say, yes, there's been no incident. So in politics, that's what it is.
Well,
it was a success.
It was. I mean, there were places where people complained about stuff that had not happened, and they were pointing at other places and saying, "Oh, these people have got that. Why haven't we got it?" But as I mentioned when I was talking about this on the This Morning program this week, I said that one our former colleague, who's now at the national broadcaster, had said that for him, the thing that amazed him, and genuinely amazed him, was that villages that they visited last year that did not have electricity now have electricity. He said he had no idea until he went again on this tour, and he realized that, wow, we were here last year, they didn't have, now they have. And so they could have night meetings and all that without having to worry about, oh, let's move on before it gets dark. And that was the thing that really resonated with him. But these things, we kind of take them for granted, don't we?
Oh, absolutely. Some of us
Those
in
who live
in
the urban
as
areas.
it were, in the urban areas, yes, we take them for granted. So, but this is it. Now things are being diversified, and the diversification comes in other areas as well as in technology. It's only now that we're talking about renewables using solar. So in certain areas, perhaps you could use stuff like that. So this is it. Now the plate, the plate, as it were, you've got options of what to do in certain areas. We'll do this in another area. We'll do something slightly different. So that sort of thing. So perhaps the challenge here would be in the urban areas, isn't it? Because of the population, it's massive. In the rural areas, you have communities, very small communities.
I know. I drove around the country, and I was amazed at how many miles we could go without encountering anybody or anything. And yet, we say it's a small country, but if you drive around it, you kind of circumnavigate the country. There's quite a lot, and a lot of places that, there are places where farming is the thing, and of course people talked and they raised this again, kind of food self-sufficiency and so on. Again, that's something that the President has been talking about as well. But it gave him an opportunity not just to be patted on the back, because some people got on the microphone and they were critical, saying, yes, you're bragging about what you did over there, but we still want it, which you'll always get. Absolutely. Because everybody is concerned about their own circumstance.
Absolutely, and to that he can answer that, yes, but you see, I'm doing. And it's going to be your turn. I'm just going to do everything at the same time. It has never sort of worked like that. So this is the key. Because on the other side, when he came back, he was asked about the cost of living.
Oh, that's right.
That is really a massive aspect, as it were, of this whole political situation, really. Yeah. And quite rightly, he said that it's a global event.
Sure.
We all know that. Yeah. Even the so-called developed countries are really struggling. Everybody understands that. And when we spoke to the minister as well, he said,
the finance minister.
Yes, the finance minister. Yes, things are difficult here, but relative to what is happening elsewhere, because mainly when we talk about the cost of living, we're talking about inflation, especially food inflation, that is just so high. Yes. But relative to the whole region, we are not so bad.
Which he mentions in our third story, by the way.
See, okay, stuff like that. But this is it. But you know that to many people suffering out there, that is little consolation for what they're going through. So what is it that one can do about that? I think this is really the area, the index, that will really form the judgment, people's judgment of you, how they see it, how well you perform with that. We know that we're just so vulnerable to external shock.
Well, this is it. And when the last tour, what some people were saying, that were there things that were promised to particular communities on the last tour that were achieved, and if so, what were they? And if not, why not? And were there promises made on this tour of things that, he said, because many times he said, yes, we will try and fix this, or try and do this, and so on. I guess that has to be the benchmark. We look back on previous tours and see what was promised and what was delivered.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you know that, Ade, the delivery can never really measure up to the promises. The delivery is just the nature of practical reality. You know what I mean? We can say whatever we want to say, but again, when it comes to action, delivering, all sorts of contingencies can get in the way. So it's a slightly different thing. So the two can never even out, you know, you deliver exactly what you promise. It's never like that. It will always be short. The ideal is always higher
the measure
than the reality.
The measure should be how short.
That's it. So that's so when you look at what he has delivered, then you ask, given the resources we had, should we have done more?
Quite.
So that would be stuff like that. So we have to look into situation. Like I was telling somebody the other day, let's get a tracker.
Quite. I think you were telling me.
You were talking about it.
Let's get you were telling me
of all these promises and then the timeline given, and we hold you to account. I think that's our job.
Yes, right. A kind of Gambia barometer, sort of like the Afro barometer.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Mboj. Story number 2, the finance Minister is coming later on the program. We've kind of preempted some of what he's going to mention. But also the Commissioner General of the Gambia has been talking, Yankuba Dabo, about how well the GRA, the Gambia Revenue Authority, has been performing. Have a look and have a listen.
Up to end of November, we've collected 99% of that, which in absolute terms translate to 19.1 billion. So it's like literally we were left with only 100 million, which is about a day's collection for us. So as we speak now, today, you know, by the closure of the day yesterday, we were at 19.6 billion. So the rest of the month, collection will just be an extra revenue collection for us, because already we have passed the target that was given to us.
As of August this year, the authority collected a record over $13.8 billion, which translates to over 71% of their target for the year, and an impressive average monthly collection of $1.7 billion, exceeding the average required collection of $1.4 billion each month to reach their target for 2024.
Of course, Mr. Mboj, this matters because we keep hearing the phrase, the Gambia is a tax-based economy.
So let's start paying our taxes.
Let's pay our taxes. And the Revenue Authority, who by the very definition of the name are responsible for collecting the revenue, they've been telling us how well they're doing. Are we setting the bar too low? The fact that they've hit this target for 3-4 years now?
Absolutely. So
whatever the target was, they've already hit or exceeded.
Yes, and it's a legitimate question whether we're setting the bar too low, or that perhaps we're just being realistic with what is out there. Yeah. Perhaps not wanting also to overdo it.
Well, quite.
You know, what are we going to charge? What would be sort of like the levies and stuff like that. So you have to balance it between, yes, getting that income. You need that, yet don't depress markets with high costs and the like. So this is it, and I also went to the IMF website and looked at what they're saying about our revenue collection, and the World Bank website as well. In fact, recently they published their spring update, the economic outlook, this economic outlook. So you look at both of them, and they'll tell you that really since 2017, the revenue's been going up. You know what I mean? Perhaps as a percentage of GDP, which is a slightly different thing. You still want more, even though it's been going up, but you still want more, especially now vis-a-vis the fact that, you know, we used to get help, the grants, grants. Not sure whether that is coming anytime soon. That's one aspect. It's been reducing anyway. That's one aspect. And then the deferral, the debt payment, there was a deferral that also expired. So you have these two aspects that would possibly maybe not helping with the revenue collection we're getting. How well is it offsetting
this is it.
These two areas that are sort of reducing?
Because what he's been, Yankuba Dabo, in a series of interviews he's given recently is he's trying to emphasize how they've kind of revolutionized it, particularly with digitization.
Absolutely.
That has helped a lot, and it's kind of helped ramp up. And I guess the more it becomes embedded and becomes the norm, the more we expect to see, you know, the increase in revenue. Because as we say, you know, we keep hearing that it's a tax-based economy, but it's one that, you know, over the years has been propped up heavily by remittances.
Oh, big time. Absolutely.
You know, if in the last year or two we've gotten close to $1 billion, and that's just from what we know from official sources. So, you know, it's probably over $1 billion. That, you know, has been a significant impact on the economy.
Absolutely, and the challenge is so much of our economy is really informal.
Yeah.
That's massive. They're not paying really taxes.
I heard somebody was, and we had a nice conversation with somebody when this story ran, because he was saying that, you know, if he got training at one of these Tibets, he could set up a garage and you know, collect money and not having to worry about tax. I said,
Absolutely.
Pardon?
Yes.
I said, no. I said, if you're taking in money and you're employing people, you should pay their national insurance and you should pay your own tax as well. You know, it's not just collect the money and put it in your pocket. And I think that's, as you rightly say, you drive around, you see so many informal businesses, then you know none of them are paying a single butut in tax. And so, you know, until that starts to change and the mentality of people that you think you can set up a business and be raking in money but not paying in tax. So there's still a way to go. And this is somebody quite intelligent in the office who was kind of having that conversation with.
Absolutely. That's the genius.
Yeah.
How, and he mentioned, not in our story he did,
but in
the past he had mentioned it so many different times, saying that we need to expand the base.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it.
Exactly.
So absolutely. So that is really the key. How do we get more people as part of the formal economy, whereby then they'll start paying their taxes in the end.
Because we whinge and we whine about things we want, but if you're whinging and whining and you're one of those who doesn't pay your tax, then you're part of the problem. Because you know, they need the money from you and I that we pay in the form of taxes in order to provide certain services for us.
That's exactly it, Ade. But this is it with human beings. We have to be honest. I'm just appealing to people's sense of morality and what
it's
they
never
should
going to
do.
do it.
It never works.
Sure.
This is why you need institutions.
Sure.
Because here what you want is for people to behave in the right way, is to influence conduct.
Yeah, quite.
Never mind what your beliefs are. See, this is the trick here. Never mind what your beliefs are. When it comes to the public space, this is how you are expected to conduct yourself.
Sure.
Otherwise, you are not going to get the service you want.
Exactly.
So you need really institutions to work so that people will behave themselves, you know, in this way. But again, we are not being irrational, or people are not being stupid.
No.
It's just that this is how institutions work. So they've adapted themselves to that kind of dysfunction.
Exactly.
It's so dysfunctional.
Right.
So we've adapted ourselves. Otherwise, we're not going to get the services we want. You will sit there, or they'll keep telling you, go till next week, go till tomorrow. They know the games that they're playing. So there's something that you need to give, that in the next hour you'll get it. So people are not, we're not stupid or bad. It's just that institutions are allowing us to behave the way that we do.
Something needs to change. Thank you for that, Mr. Birch. And now on to another matter, fiscal matters. The finance minister, he delivered his budget to the National Assembly. And it was a long one, but here's a snippet of what he had to say.
The domestic economy witnessed a sustained recovery despite uncertainties in the global economy. This is being driven by increased production and productivity in agriculture, recovery in tourism, and unwavering construction by the government and the private sector. Sustained disinflation has been witnessed in the last strategy. The ministry also prioritized the She Trade Hub program, which aims to support women-owned businesses. In labor and employment, the ministry facilitated the signing of bilateral labor agreements with UAE, Saudi Arabia, and negotiations are ongoing with Qatar and Spain.
Negotiations ongoing, Qatar, Spain already signed with Saudi Arabia. Mr. Birch, that will probably make a small dent in it, but it's everything else. and there are various taxes that have been put on, duties on cigarettes, alcohol for those who consume both of those. But he also mentioned inflation rate and so on, that it had come down quite dramatically. But people don't seem to feel that or think that, and that's part of the problem that the finance minister has, because he went online and people were commenting on it, and on Facebook and otherwise, other places, that's what they were commenting on. Yes, but I don't feel it. You said it's down, but I don't feel it. And how do you make people feel it, Mr. Ambush?
That's exactly where the problem is.
Yeah, quite.
Because this will just seem so abstract.
Yeah. Oh.
It has come down, but when I go to the shop, whatever I buy, sugar, bread, really nothing.
Bag of rice, people always use that example. Bag of cement, people use those examples.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Of course, we know that these are crude ways of measuring.
Quite.
But this is politics.
Yeah,
this is really what is it about people? You know, your electorate. This is what we are like. Yeah, so you have a massive problem in your hands, trying to explain in a language that they will understand this phenomenon of, you know, perhaps our GDP has grown by what, 4%, 4 whatever percent, or even 5%. But how come I'm not directly feeling it? I mean, this is what ordinary folk, this is how we think. You know what I mean? At least when I go to the shops, how come I'm not feeling these things? And this is really what our problem is. I'm depreciating, Dallasy.
Well,
what can you do about that? You know what I mean? Against the dollar, against the major,
the dollar, the euro,
effect on you. We mentioned it earlier. We are just so vulnerable to what happens externally, that the space, the latitude you have to maneuver, as it were, it's just so limited, it's just so narrow, isn't it?
Yeah, quite. So he mentioned tourism there, and I bought this at the Senegambia market, and I asked the guy, I said, what's it been like this year? He said, I said, you know, more tourists, many more than last year at this same time. So that's one of the things that they're hoping will pick up, of course, and it seems on a kind of anecdotal, scientific way that there seems to be this thing, but of course we can count the numbers coming through, and they seem to be on the up as well.
Well, that's really what we hope for, but of course, as you said, we have to wait until the very end. That's just when we will know. Anecdotally, fine, but that's not quite the picture. Yeah, as it were, it's just one person's picture.
Exactly.
As it were, what's going on. So, but this is the key. We'll see what happens this year, next year. When are we going to pick up from pre-COVID?
And well, I was just about to say the World Tourism and Travel Council said that most countries are at 96% of pre-COVID levels. So it will be interesting to see whether Gambia is one of those that has reached 96 or completely recovered, as that other country has done. So
absolutely. We'll see. So you mentioned tourism and of course agriculture. What else can we do? We all know that we have a long way to go, even though at President Barra's final conference after the people talk, talking about, yes, we're not doing too badly with groundnuts, couscous and others. Our problem is really with rice self-sufficiency, obviously, because of that's what we consume.
Staple food, and yet we import most of it.
So this is it. How do we begin to tackle that? Because really to solve it, it's a very long-term project, isn't it, really? So it's just a question of what can I improve year in, year out. You see, tangible improvements. Absolutely. What can I tangibly improve year in, year out that I can point to as an evidence out there that we are doing this or doing that? So even in during the press conference, when one journalist asking about the groundnuts this year not being so good, he said, we do not know yet. Let us go and look at the data. They're doing that analysis and the like, which I like that answer. You have to look at the data really so that you can analyze. So this is it. We all know that we are in difficult circumstances. But what can I improve year in, year out? Something as modest as that. It's really, one cannot ask for too much. It's not going to work. So what can I improve year in, year out, I think?
That's the conundrum. That's the question. Thank you, Mr. Ambush. Story number 4. As we speak, polio vaccination phase 2 campaign is just about to come to an end. What's it been like so far? This might tell you. Have a look.
At the moment, we do not have many challenges. Most people are receptive to the vaccine, especially with the first round, because this is the second round. In the first round, we have few challenges, but the second round, the challenges will be minimal, because we believe that the public have already known about the campaign and that it's starting today and ending on the 15th.
Health officials say children must be vaccinated even if they have completed their routine vaccination schedule. And vaccination teams will move from house to house, markets, and other public places to administer the vaccines to children under the age group.
Mr. Mboj, we heard there, and also from our colleagues in the Lower River region and North Bank region, that who went and accompanied these people, that there hasn't been the dreaded vaccine hesitancy. And we heard from that clip there that it's been quite encouraging. So it seems as if, with polio at least, they've managed to kind of get people around to saying that, yeah, you know, and they've been using radio and other means to get out and get the message out, and it seems to be working.
It's like going back to your roots.
Yeah.
Back to your roots. We've never had a problem with it.
Yeah, quite.
Really, it was just from 2020.
Well, that's right.
This whole social media phenomenon.
And most of that was based on the fact that they're saying that they found the vaccine too quickly. You know, the vaccine was discovered too quickly, this thing happened, and blah, blah, blah. Suddenly, after a year of panic throughout the world, they said, hey, voila, we have a vaccine. And that kind of led people to be, that was a bit quick.
Absolutely.
And suspicious. Yeah.
I heard that argument.
Yeah,
then my question was, what does too quickly mean?
Well, this is it.
Determined by what?
Because
what happened in the past?
Yeah,
but you are forgetting all the stuff that's been happening in
all
between.
The research that is
all
ongoing.
The research and even the tools now.
Yeah, go ahead.
With the computer, with programming, what we can do in a short period, they couldn't do in the past. Right. So once you provide the context, you see the naivety, as it were, of that point. It's really very naive, you know, taking sort of the technological context into account, that sort of thing. So that was, it was just easy to knock that one off stage, as it were, that kind of argument. So we've never had a problem with these things. Or when we were younger, when you go and look at the records, the high vaccination rates.
You know, we
90% we used to get them. Anything, yellow fever, I don't know, they had this must-have, this must-have vaccination. We all did. 98%, 95%, very, very high. That's what you did. So we're just going back to our roots.
Indeed, back to our roots. Thank you for that, Mr. Mboj. As I said, we'll spend shorter time on some topics. Story number 5, which will also take us to the break, midway point. National Youth Conference and Festival, NACONF, is about to kick off as I speak. And what's it all about? Well, this might tell you. Have a look, have a listen.
We are expecting to have the President of the Republic of the Gambia to grace the occasion and officially open NACONF, as in previous editions, where we have the head of state open and close the biggest youth gathering in the Gambia.
This year's event features what the organizers call the Campe Outreach, a significant step that saw the LOC reach out to various youths from all wards within KM. Here is Elizabeth Quinta Gomez again.
The resolutions that we got from the Campe Outreach does not even match the resolutions that we got from the pre-NACONF. The richest resolution we have gotten so far as a region, ever since inception, was the resolutions that we got from the Campe Outreach.
I think what she meant is that what they got for Campe Outreach exceeded what they got from the other outreach, and it seems that they contacted youth groups and said, you tell us what you want. It's meant to be your conference rather than us kind of presenting you with an agenda. But I must say, just as an aside, we covered the last one, people seem to have quite a lot of fun, as well as talk about stuff, Mr. Mboj.
That was the idea. Really, when it was first created, really, Summit for Youth Week and those stuff, the emphasis really was more on sports then.
And so on, yes.
But of course, with anything, these institutions, if I can call it that, they evolve over time.
That's right. They still kept the sporting element because the minister was visiting today some of the sporting facilities.
But they added some more.
That's right.
Of course, given the context now, they have all sorts of discussions. There's a sort of cerebral element now, sort of discussions, debates, and that sort of thing, which is a fantastic thing. So we just want sort of a wide participation of youth in it.
This is it,
so I worry about what's sort of given the population of youth, what's the participation of youth in it? Are they engaged with this in the way that...
Because all the regions are represented, and they're expecting 2,000 to attend from across the country. And when we did this story, a kind of penny dropped, because just the week before, we had done a story saying that the youth are not asked or they're not engaged in decision making at all. And yet when you heard about the kind of campaign outreach on a kind of smaller level, I guess, they said that's exactly what they did do. They reached out to these youth groups who then fed back their thoughts. But of course, it's also been opened by the president, although I don't know whether he's going to sit in and listen to some of the discussions. And of course, you also have the Minister of Youth and Sports being very actively engaged, of course. So these people can get to hear from these young people about their concerns. And I guess in that way, you could say that people are listening to them.
Absolutely, and we have to be honest. For a while now, there appears to have international bodies, NGOs, whatever. There's a lot of money, I think, injected into youth schemes. We've been uncovering these stories. So there's a lot of it going on. It's just that, yes, of course, you listen to youth, obviously. But then, when you're done, there's another matrix that you have to take into account. What can we do as a nation? What is affordable? What is it that also you must try to do for yourself as self-help? So there has to be an honest discussion between, we've always had this intergenerational thing. That's why I tell people that maybe for most programs, you must have the voice of youth and the voice of experience for the sake of our listeners or our viewers, because we know we were youth once, we were young once.
I think people forget that.
People sort of forget that. Now I see how naive I was. But kids, perhaps you're going through this, you wouldn't see it. Then you begin to cry for the moon. It's not going to happen. Then you become disaffected. You see, can you see the link between bad thinking, I call it, bad thinking, and eventually the outlook, the outlook you're going to have, and that's what's going to lead to whatever. So it is important to root the thinking in really what we can achieve given what we have. We've seen what revolutionaries have done in the past. Come up with all that zeal and ready for this or that. In power, what do? They degenerate because what you thought was a fantasy.
This is it. Suddenly the revolutionary becomes a reactionary.
It's always a fantasy. Absolutely. Day after the revolution, you become a reactionary. Then you start telling them, oh wait, it will take time.
Look what's happening.
We told you before.
Look what's happening in Senegal, where the now former opposition have now turned on the current opposition, and that's if you needed a lesson in that.
Absolutely. So you need to know how long it took to build Rome, as they say.
This is it. And it wasn't one day. So at that point, we'll take a break, and after the break, of course, we will have 5 more stories. So don't go away. Join us after this break.
yaa ko laajte QCell jox la ko yokkute am na ci suñ promo bu bees bii di suñu bundle mega promo léegi mun nga dugga ci internet bi ci noo ko buggee ak num gën a yombee jëndal suñ data bundle package boo bugga te nga am si wàññite bu màgg dialal star 303 hash pour nga mun a jëfandikoo internet bi si network bu gën a yaatu jëndal 20 megabytes data bundle léegi si juróom-ñaari dërëm ak genn wàlla bu dul loolu nga jënda biga bundle lu dem ba 20 gigabytes waaw dégg nga ma 20 gigabytes data bundle ak suñ mega promo bundles bi mun ngaa jëfandikoo internet bi waxtaan si lu yàgga ñu jokkale la saa su ne fu ne pour am si lu leer mun ngaa call QCell customer care si 111 QCell ñoo xaali yoon bi ñeneen toppa lii dafa ànd ak sarta yuñ tëral.
Hello and welcome back. You are watching the Week in Review. I'm still Adi Darame as I was in the first half, and across from me is still Mr. Mohammed Mboj. Mr. Mboj, thank you for your interjections thus far.
Pleasure's all mine.
And if you're joining us at this point, I would say two things. First, you've missed 5 cracking stories. And secondly, if you're used to seeing Lamine Sonko doing the signing, unfortunately he can't be with us this week, but he will be back next week, all being well. So, story number 6. The government has recently, over the last few years, had this monthly press conference where it's not just one ministry, but various ministries come to kind of say stuff to the public and also take questions from the journalists present. And so the last one of the year was held this week, and we can't play all of it for you, but here's some of what happened there.
Starting with the security situation, the country has been very stable compared to other countries in the sub-region. Politically, it's been a very stable political environment. These are facts. This is backed by empirical evidence that one of the most stable countries today, politically, socially, it's the Gambia. When it comes to delivering social services as well, the government has been doing extremely well. When it comes to electricity, really the rural electrification process is ongoing. We've had an enormous expansion of electricity to the extent that the figures tell us that from 2017 to date, 203,000 meters have been deployed compared to 193,000 from independence to 2017. It means that the government's vision to ensure that every community has electricity is going very well.
Our growth rate for 2024 is forecasted to be about 5.7% in 2024, over compared to 4.8% in 2023. The economy is improving and stable currently as we speak. If you look at inflation, inflation is also trending downwards from 18.5% in 2023 to about 10% for the past 2 months, that is September and October. Inflation has been stable around 10%.
So from 18% inflation down to 10%, that's quite a huge drop, Mr. Mboj. But as we were saying, people sometimes don't feel that. But on the general point, these press conferences, because we've watched them or we've streamed them live on QTV, and they've been, particularly in the times when journalists ask informed questions, they've been quite good because they've been able to tease stuff beyond what was presented at the beginning of the press conference. When it gets to the Q&A, sometimes they tease out. So for me, it's been, I'd give it 6 out of 10 or something. If I had to give it marks out of 10, it could be better. And some of it might even be, for my fellow journalists. I wish more of them would come better informed, because I cringe when I hear people asking fairly embarrassing questions that they ought to know better. But generally, I wanted this story because of the fact that, how do you see this press conference and its usefulness?
Absolutely. It seems as if the current Minister of Information derived it.
Yes.
I think there was a time when Ibrahim Silla
yeah.
and others, they were conducting this periodic
that's right.
sort of meet the press, as it were,
yes, indeed.
conferences, and now the regularity of it. It is fantastic. I love it because it allows us to watch our ministers, public officials, against the press, as it were, the quality, as it were, of engagement. One could see the sort of quality of engagement between the two. And then you are correct. with journalists, perhaps we must raise our game when it comes to asking sort of questions, as it were. The penetrating one, isn't it, really?
Yeah, well,
how do you ask sort of the penetrating questions? You listen to what the person says, as it were, and then sort of extract, if you could, the sort of talking points, the logical question that you should extract from that sort of thing. And I've even gone to the extent of thinking, should they pool their questions? Should they come together before? What area really are we concerned about?
Well, that's
because of, you know, our reports, we've been carrying this report ABC. So how do we pool our questions then so that we can be more effective?
Yeah, this is it.
Because you're going to have, it becomes so inchoate, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I think sometimes
some would ask this, another person ask another thing.
And somebody asks, and you hear people going,
not coordinated at all.
Quite.
So it becomes easier.
To just back
so
them away.
whoever is answering, it really becomes easier, as it were. So coordinate, and you're not trying to catch out anybody. You just want to get to the bottom of things. And because then perhaps that would be more productive, that would be meatier. As it were.
But you know, so like I said, I've given it 6 out of 10.
It's a fantastic idea.
I'll see how it continues and how it develops. I'm very, very intrigued by it. Thank you for that, Mr. Mboch. Story number 7, the Sadauda Kairoba Jawara Rights Moot Court Competition. The 5th one has just ended, and it's an international competition, and very good it is too. Have a look, have a listen.
The format for this competition allows participants to assume the roles of advocates, arguing complex cases grounded in human rights principles before a distinguished panel of judges. Through this process, they gain invaluable insights into the challenges and intricacies of defending rights in real-world scenarios.
At a time when Africa, like many parts of the world, were battling with human rights violations, authoritarianism, and impunity, Sir Dawda Kairaba Jawara played a key role in the drafting of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, which today is the foundational document for the protection of human rights across Africa. The Moot Court competition is named after Sir Dawda in recognition of his valiant efforts. Carl Frederick Paul commended the honoring of this legacy and shared words of encouragement with the finalists.
The irony is not lost on many people that Sir Dawda was involved in the drafting of this, and look who replaced him. And in terms of human rights records, they could not be more different, Mr. Mboch, could they?
Absolutely, and it just tells you about society, countries, and their histories, as it were. You can go through all shades, all circumstances, all kinds of experiences. So this is it. But it's good that we reflect, so that when you reflect, you look to the positive stuff, the wholesome stuff that you want to keep alive.
Indeed.
So this is the key. There are things that we want to keep alive, as it were. So this is it. I love moods. We went to law school, so it's exciting, fantastic.
Exactly, for us it's
absolutely
it's fun.
That's it. But again, afterwards, after the whole experience, then certain ideas might linger.
Well, this is true. This is
really the interesting thing. That's the beauty.
That's why I was saying I like watching these, because, as you rightly say, you'll hear something and you'll hear arguments. And for anybody who's curious, they were from representations from around West Africa, but the finalists were Gambia and
Calabar
in Nigeria.
Absolutely, 5 universities.
That's right.
As it were competed.
This is it, and the finalists, So as you rightly say, sometimes you'll hear something, say, okay, I like the way that person has put that argument, or this person has kind of defended this position or that position. And it's food for thought, because
it's a simulation, isn't it? A simulation that can stimulate.
I was about to say,
isn't it?
Simulation that can lead to stimulation.
Absolutely. So this is giving the these would-be lawyers an opportunity to argue hypothetical cases that's sort of rooted in real life, what's happening. So absolutely. So just carry it sort of wide viewership, if you like.
And this time the theme was protecting migrants and their families.
Yes.
You know, protecting the fundamental rights of migrants and their families, because migration is something that we talk about, we obsess over recently. And so that was why they thought, okay, let's bring something that's not so really abstract. It's something that we're dealing with on a daily basis.
That's it. And you want more people to get involved.
Yes, indeed.
Absolutely, with the theme, given that
because
migration now in our age,
everybody knows somebody who's migrated or is thinking of migrating.
Yeah. It's a major dynamic of our societies now, this idea of migration. So yes, fantastic idea.
Sure.
Get more people to watch it, get more people to be talking about it.
I was going to say, it would be lovely if it was televised.
Absolutely.
And, you know, so maybe
we'll see what they do
next year.
Absolutely. Televise it. And then you generate, as it were, discussions and you even provide perspective.
Yes, indeed.
You sort of guide the way we think about these things. Often when we are at home, we don't know what the law is, we don't know how these things work. So our thinking is not guided by any sense of realism. How does it work out there? So we start making up all sorts of things.
Or we see movies about court cases and we think that's the real thing.
So opinion now fills the space of fact, realism.
Yeah. But thank you. So keep on, and I'll try and attend next year's one. I'm looking forward to that. Well, thank you for that, Mr. Mboj. And now the Information Commission, another one of my many obsessions. But the Information Commission is there to kind of guide us through the Access to Information Act, which is now been made flesh. And so recently they held a press conference to talk about their work and what can be expected of them. Here's a snippet.
Since the swearing in of commissioners, an office had been acquired for the commission by the government of the Gambia, that is where you are today. The Western Africa Regional Digital Integration Program, called WADIP, through the Ministry of Information, Media and Broadcasting Services, provided furniture, fittings, and equipment for the commission. We still need more, but it's a good start. We're drawing out a plan for sensitization, and you would be very active in that process to sensitize, because once we have the national roadmap for the implementation of the Act, then we need to popularize, we need to sensitize, we need to educate, we need to work with the media, and from Banjul to Koina, to let people know about access to information and how to access information and what tools are available for that process.
Yeah, we heard there from Nene McDowell-Gay, who's the commissioner, the information commissioner of the Information Commission, and it's the information, not the Access to Information Commission, as somebody kept telling me. Well, Mr. Mboj, as I said, you know, something of an obsession of mine, because, you know, I know how game-changing this can be once it's up and running. So they've now got their office, they've got their furniture, they've got the equipment in terms of computers and so on, and they've already started receiving requests, and they're telling people, look, it's not that we're being difficult, but, you know, allow us to set up, and then you can start making these requests and getting them in the time that the law says they should be. But we kind of, since 2021, we're now in 2024, about to go into 2025. It's only in January, by the way, that they'll start being sort of up and running and functioning properly, and then that's what they wanted to tell the public, really.
That's it, and it was only recently that the commissioners were appointed and they were sworn in and the like. That's right. Yes, that's it. Really, the purpose of this conference was really to tell people what they've been doing.
As I said,
you know, the steps that
we've
they've
not been
taking.
sitting on our hands.
We've not been sitting on our hands, and the like. They've done the consultations. They've been the week-long
tour,
study tour in Ghana. So now it's a question of having the roadmap for implementation, isn't it? That was really what they said.
Which they kind of working on with the GPU. In fact, the GPU were the ones who proposed it.
Yep, exactly.
And of course, they're the ones who kind of drove the whole law to coming into fruition, you know, into reality rather, and of bearing fruit. And so, naturally, they have also come up with a roadmap of how they would like to see. But I attended one that I said, these consultations, and I said, we need to be realistic. You can set roadmaps and you can set targets and timescales, but be realistic in how you set them based on what we have. And as we said, you know, they're telling people of what they're doing and what they've done so far and what they hope to be doing going forward.
Absolutely. And what are roadmaps? They're guides.
Yeah, yeah.
Because with experience, with reality, you tweak them here, tweak them there. That's the way these things work. But you must start with something, you know, a skeletal, as it might be. You got to start something and start fleshing it out. So this is it. The ultimate test would be when it comes to certain sensitive issues. Would they sort of hold their ground? It is very important what commissioners do so that they can have credibility. These things, they matter. So the test will come. They're setting up. And we hope that very soon, that was what we said in the story, we hope that soon then we can begin to test it.
That will be the test, because as you said, there's certain information that by law should be released, but out of embarrassment, embarrassment is not a reason to hold back, as I found when I worked on this in England. Those are not grounds to say we're not releasing to the public, go embarrass a ministry or a minister or even the Prime Minister. You cannot say, oh, on that no. The law is clear on what should be released, Absolutely. It's in black and white. And so that would be the test.
That would be the biggest test. Absolutely. So it's sort of uncontroversial request. That's cool. That's fine.
Quite, you know,
but
how many people are employed in this ministry,
stuff like
that kind of thing, they will give them. That's uncontroversial. But when you start getting the deeper stuff about contracts and so on, there are some contracts which, again, I've warned people now, commercial in confidence and so on, cannot be released, but there are others that should and must be released.
That's it. We know that all over the world.
Quite.
This is really what happens between this kind of bodies and governments.
Sure.
At some point, sooner or later, you're going to have really tough sort of discussions.
Particularly in countries where we're used to hoarding information and protecting it from prying eyes. So. January, I can't wait for January to come.
Our outlook, our attitude, we are not really for disclosure.
No, quite.
You know what I mean? Authority tends to hide.
So this one not only forces disclosure, it actually forces proactive disclosure as well. And again, we're not used to that, but thank you for that, Mr. Mboch. And story number 9, our penultimate story, very, very different. Prevention and Prohibition of Torture Act. It's been an act for a while now, and this was passed in 2023, and now folks have come in to talk to our police about how and why this act matters and how it is to be implemented. Have a look, have a listen.
The Gambia also signed the UN Convention Against Torture in October 1985 and ratified it in September 2018, signifying the country's dedication to protecting human rights. During the training sessions, participants will engage in discussions and practical exercises to foster a deeper understanding of the contents and implications of the Act and Convention. Experts in human rights law and policing will lead the sessions, providing insights into the legal framework surrounding the prevention of torture.
Legal framework around the prevention, prohibition of torture. Mr. Mboch, this matters because we've seen it not just in Africa, across the world, where the police overstep the mark when it comes to dealing with protests, dealing with people who've been arrested, even for dreadful, dreadful crimes. They've been charged, not yet convicted, and yet they might be treated as if, and sometimes people are tortured because you've done something so terrible and they want the information out of you and they think the end justifies the means. But of course, legally, it does not. And so this is what they're trying to impart to our police officers, that you might have to change your mind and your mindset, really.
You know, while I was listening to that story, then, as our reporter said there, we signed the UN Convention Against Torture in October 1985.
I know. I smiled when
Yahya Jammeh came in. Who cares about that? 1994 and the like. And we got an indication.
And that's why I left that bit in, by the way.
Yes, we got an indication of why. Because when we heard the testimony of Senator Sabally, he said, oh, the UN Convention, what does that mean? That dismissive nature, that Philistine, as it were, behaving like a Philistine, as it were. So how do you stop that?
Yeah, quite.
You know what I mean? whatever is written, that's just as good as the people.
Yeah, quite.
This is really where our issue is. You can pass any act, you can do whatever, but if the people are not like that, that's meaningless.
Well, this is it.
They're just words sort of written on paper.
This is it. How do you change the culture of the force? This is what they've been used to.
That is
because it's been there since 1985.
Absolutely.
It's not been adhered to.
So I went back. I thought about what education is, what they define as competence, that knowledge, skills, and attitude.
Right.
So you can give them the knowledge.
Yeah,
fine. You can provide them with the skills, how you deal with that. Without the attitude, they will ignore all of that. That is really, I was quite struck by that definition of really what competence is, because we tend to ignore the attitude bit. But we see how it hurt us.
That's right.
Because we cannot run institutions because of that attitude is essentially the drawback, as it were. So we must sort of diagnose, be like a doctor, but when you diagnose, you use bright, primary, objective concepts to get it right, otherwise you prescribe the wrong medicine.
This is it. So once you've done your diagnosis, what's the prognosis?
Absolutely.
So,
the prescription, it comes from that. So this is really what the key is. There's an element of what we need to do that is very scientific, really. So this is it. Then one next, would you keep to it? You know what I mean? It's good to understand what your problems are, then perhaps it will help in what kind of solutions you come up with. We know what we've been living with for a very long time.
Exactly. Yeah, thank you for that, Mr. Mbooj. And that takes us nicely to our very last story, and really this is a very short one. The CAF Awards, Confederation of African Football Awards, just been announced about the awards list, and the Scorpions, the national team, didn't make it, but somebody connected to the Gambia did. Who? You've probably guessed. But anyway, have a look, have a listen.
The Gambia failed to qualify to a third consecutive AFCON following a 2-1 defeat to Comoros in November. And this year's award only has Scorpions and Brighton winger Yankuba Minteh nominated among the 10 young best players on the continent due to his outstanding performance. The youngster has now made it to the last 5. The 2024 awards covers from January to October this year. This year's glittering CAF Awards will be held at Marrakech Palais de Congrès on Monday, 16 December.
Mr. Mbooj, so as I said there, no surprise that the Scorpions didn't make it because of the kind of abysmal performance over the last year, let's be blunt. But Yankuba Minteh has been a kind of bright, shining star in the midst of all that, both for the national team and, of course, for his club side Brighton, where last week he scored a cracking goal, I think, in a 2-2 draw. So he has blossomed and really is the kind of bright spot that the Gambian fans can take from the year, which has not been a particularly good one.
That's it. And from what I understand, we were nominated. A good number of them were nominated. Yeah. They just never made the final.
Well, this is
even the
previous
coach.
Time. Yeah, the last time. The previous time.
Yeah, that sort of thing. This time, there's absolutely nothing.
No.
But again, it's a reflection
of the performance.
The performance.
Because this is it. You know, it should be no surprise that if you don't perform well, then, you know, why would you expect to be nominated?
But you see, we are rookies in this.
Yeah, very much.
in many years, only 2021.
We'd kind of delivered and punched above our weight, and that had raised expectations.
Absolutely.
You know, getting to a quarterfinal, you know, round of 16, and then you're losing to the likes of Cameroon. You know, I mean, that's like, wow. You know, so I guess better luck next time, I guess.
Absolutely. But again, we've been following these things for a very, very long time.
Sure.
It takes time really to learn the ropes, international football. Yeah. So this sort of automatic expectation that, oh, we've done it 2 consecutive times, so we're going to have it a third. It doesn't quite work that way. The learning curve includes the highs when we got to the quarterfinals and the lows when you do not go at all. Better luck next time.
Better luck next time, chaps. And, of course, join us next time. So, Mr. Mbooj, thank you for your interjections. And to you, the viewers, thank you for watching. Until we come your way again next week. Goodbye.